Right, thanks. You see, Benjamin, clearly, listening to Dr. Nawani, this is part of the problem. Dr. Nawani says when it comes to pharmacies with thermometers, they will be more than 10%. But I am not saying, it's not Kwame saying, this is in the Ghana Health Harmonization Report 2022-2023. And I read, only 10% of facilities with a main pharmacy store had a functional thermometer stroke thermostat, and 4% of the facilities with a current room temperature of minus 15 to 25 degrees inclusive. It's stated. So when I hear a parliamentarian dispute something that has actually been researched by the WHO, the Ghana Health Service, the Ministry of Health, then I know he's not read the documents. And if the people who are making the laws are not reading the documents, then we have a big problem. And yesterday, the same thing happened on PM Express with the PRO of the Ministry of Health, who was challenging things that were in the Health Harmonization Report. And I had to take him on the same way and say, and so I'm becoming concerned because now, yesterday, it happened with someone who speaks on behalf of the MPP. Today, it's happened with someone who speaks on behalf of the NDC.
Right.
That should concern us as a country, that the people who are actually in charge are not reading. So they probably are not reading, and that's why they know we also don't read.
The people in charge are not in charge because they don't know.
No, they are not reading. They commission the reports because they have to commission them. And people get certain allowances. And people can build buildings. But when it comes to actually reading what is in those reports, they don't. Yes, I read them. And so I was saying them out of memory. But when he challenged it, I had to open up the report to see, have I quoted wrongly? Because if I've quoted wrongly, then I acknowledge it because people are listening to it.
Right.
But when I realized that actually the 10%, only 4% even have a functioning temperature, it goes down when you go minus 15 to 25 for storing things like very, very freeze-dried things, we're in trouble. And so I ask myself, then he starts blaming the NPP. But if you are not reading the reports, how do you even stand on the floor of parliament and challenge them at the health select?
Right.
So you see, we have serious problems, systemic, and that's why I said we should elevate this conversation far above the head of the technocrat and start challenging and holding the policymakers to account. Because if the person coming with the policy is coming with a shambolic policy, and the person who's supposed to challenge it has also not read the document that will give him the tools and the statistics to challenge it, then we are all running in the dark, and that is dangerous.
And that even reminds me about Agenda 111, right? Imagine these same people who are not reading, who don't know specifically the problems on the ground. Oh, political situation. Let's put up 111 hospitals in districts and regions and all of that without actually addressing the problem.
Let me do a quick mathematical off-the-back calculation for you to appreciate how dire that decision is. If you look in the facts and figures, the Ghana Health Service, document on their quality of work, it tells you that there are about 2,700 hospitals in Ghana that need a doctor, at least one doctor to run. These hospitals run for 24 hours. So at least if the doctor is working an 8-hour contract, which none of them do, you need a minimum of 3 doctors to run on each of these hospitals. If you do that calculation, 3 times 2,700, you are getting to over 7,000 doctors you need. When you take out the 5 teaching hospitals, which are taking out 1,500, we do not have enough doctors to even go around the current stock of hospitals we have.
To talk of.
On what basis are you building 111? So if then you want to challenge it, you have to challenge it with their own statistics. But if the people are also not reading the facts and figures from the Ministry of Health, how are they going to challenge these things? And that is why I get animated when I start talking about these things and I realize that people are not talking to the numbers, but they are going on an emotional tirade. I struggle. Because if you want to argue, let's argue the numbers. At the end of the day, we all want it to get better. And so, if we want it to get better, we need to know what our numbers are, what our stock of equipment are, what our stock of human resources are, what our attrition rate of health human resources are, what our production of health human resources are. But if we are not talking all these numbers and we all go on and say, oh, no, as for thermometers in pharmacy, I'll put it more than 10%.
Yeah.
I get worried
Yeah.
I get worried, and then I have to push back, and I have to push back very aggressively, and I make no apologies when I take those postings, because at the end of the day, we are speaking to Ghanaians whose money was used to commission these reports, and if we're commissioning those reports and you are not reading them, then as a researcher in the area, I need to push back forcefully.
Right.
And at that point, I don't take any prisoners. I don't really care who you are. And you see, Benjamin, let me end it this way. The sad truth is, when you take these postings, like I sometimes take, the very people you are advocating for, the Ghanaians, we've divided ourselves partisanly. By now, go and check Facebook, the insults flying on my wall.
Yeah.
And you know it. They've been flying since what? The NDC time have been flying through the NPP time. Yes, it's just water off the back of a stone, because that is how I've become. But the point is, the people doing that don't even know that they are putting themselves in harm's way. So, and that's why I'm saying that as a people, we are collectively lazy. And I have just pointed out to you laziness on the part of leadership, laziness on the part of the opposition. And I'm not showing you, when it comes to our partisanship, laziness on the part of the citizens. And that is why our health system is where it is.